Welcome back to Boneset Ranch. If you're like us, camping means getting away from people and getting out into nature and enjoying the peace and quiet. Or maybe you enjoy fishing in your favorite stream. It doesn't matter if you catch anything as long as you get to enjoy the quiet sounds of the running water and the birds in the background. At night, it's nice to sit around a campfire and tell stories. The challenge these days, though, is finding a place that is easy to get to and is reliably available. For about 25 years now, we've been dreaming of creating such a place in the backside of our property. Everyone in my neighborhood lives high up on a ridge above a creek valley. Our property starts from the ridge above and stretches down to the creek below. This is where we wanted to create our camp. We located it in the area of the green circle. We had just come out of an extremely wet winter where the creek had flooded and cleared a lot of the vegetation for us. For the first time in years, we could really see the topography of the area down by the creek. And it left us with a blank slate for creating a camp. We found a nice little clearing back in the trees just up from the stream that was going to be the perfect place, but there's something unusual about the landscape on the bottom side of our property. Almost 100 years ago, this entire area had been heavily dredge mined for gold. The landscape was left in unnatural rolling mounds of tailings from the dredging. You can see here there are dips and holes left behind by the mining activity, and it was going to require some heavier equipment for me to be able to flatten this out to more of the natural landscape that this once was 100 years ago. My trusty tractor just wasn't quite up to the job. After clearing back all the trees and the bushes a bit, it was time to bring in the heavy equipment. So I went out and I rented a skid steer for the first time. I had never driven one of these little monsters before. On a skid steer, you're doing steering with one hand and operating some of the boom with the other hand, and you're even operating some of the equipment with your feet, depending on the model. It makes for a bit of a challenge, quite a learning curve to get into the rhythm of digging and smoothing and doing what you need to do. But I eventually got the hang of it. The dredging piles are really full of these rock boulders that are really hard to dig up with any kind of equipment. It's really kind of a mess that was left behind by the miners. I started out with a general idea of how I wanted the camp to lay out, but I let the topography kind of guide me into how to shape the land, try to restore it to more of its natural shape, and to create the kind of space we wanted to have for camping. Okay, so here's the work after using the skid steer for a couple days. I've developed a second ramp. I've changed the approach of the first ramp. I have developed a secondary tent site with a bit of a buffer wall between the more public side of the property and this campsite. The tractor is currently sitting in the future kitchen dining space of the campsite. Here you can see this will be the main parking area for the UTV, secondary parking or secondary tent site where the skid steer is. The future fire pit is here with a few big boulders. This is the main area for the cabin tent. The tape measure denotes the full depth of the tent at 20 feet. It's also a little more than 12 feet wide, just enough to allow us to create a path through this area so that I can access a new ramping path that I've created here to a couple more spaces, possible future expansion tent spaces, table spaces, just a place to come and look around up in here. Out here is a local creek, seasonal creek. It only runs during the wet season. Out beyond is the year-round creek. The creek was a natural source for wetting that down all the dust and keeping the soil compacted as we leveled it out, removed all the little rocks, added sand to the area where we wanted to put the tent, and the little device on the left there is a compactor we use to get it all down firm and ready to bring in all the camp stuff. We were really quite pleased with the way it turned out in the end. We had a great spot for coming and landing with the UTV. There's the tent spot beyond, and this area for a kitchen all laid out. And you can see how I used the boulders that came out of the tailings as nice retaining walls. In our next video, we pack up the UTV and we go set up camp. Of course, us eager beavers do it way too late in the night.